Don't send your resume to a recruiter until you watch this. Looking for work can often be exhausting and frustrating, especially if you're applying for jobs in a competitive or crowded sector. To increase your odds of success, you should tweak a few things in your resume, cover letter, LinkedIn profile, and professional networking approach, among others. Before sending your resume to a recruiter or HR manager, watch today's program so you know the state-of-the-art practices that successful candidates are using not only in the private sector, but also in the government and nonprofit fields. Welcome to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. I hope you are doing marvelous. I'm doing fantastic. And if you are doing marvelous as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka. Let's roll. Today I want to talk about a very interesting topic around resume writing. And before I do that, let me acknowledge some of our loyal fans and listeners and viewers throughout the world, particularly in Pennsylvania. We have Eva Turner in Liverpool, Pennsylvania, Ellie Ward in Philadelphia, of course, Pennsylvania, and Joseph Thomas in Pittsburgh, beautiful city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Really appreciate that. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is your resume content. And I have three elements in the content. First thing you want to do is you want to review resume examples in your field. So when crafting your resume, you want to study samples or examples of resume from your industry. This is very important, and you want to look at best practices, right? It's very important that every industry has their own code of, every industry has their own practices, their own standards. So you might want to stick to that. It is very important because, for instance, if you are in entertainment, you cannot have a finance resume, right? You want to mimic a resume of one of the top 3 or 5 or 10 people and personalities in your field. This is very important. You want to make your resume very easy to read, and you want to make it very simple, right? You don't want to complicate, you don't want a convoluted resume, because remember, an HR manager has to review probably tens of resumes, and you want to make her life or his life easy. You want to make it easy for him or her to review your resume and potentially call you. All right. So readability is key. You want to make it brief. Make your resume brief. I always say that 1 page or 2 maximum is the norm, unless you have like 20 years of experience or you work in the academic field. We know that university professors tend to have very long CVs and resumes, but make your resume brief, and short and to the point, right? Include the summary and experience descriptions. Include numbers. Numbers are very important, right? Use statistics, use percentage, use numbers, right? Quantify your performance, quantify your achievements, right? It's very important. Now, second thing in your resume content, the second tip is look for keywords in the job description and then use them in your resume. So if you have a job you're interested in, right? And you basically know that, of course, you got to have experience in the field, right? And you're interested in the job, you can tweak your resume a little bit to include some of the keywords. Don't overdo it though. I'm not telling you to overload your resume with the same keywords that are found in the job description. No, but there are some important keywords. Among keywords, you have some that are very, very key, right? So you want to pay particular attention to those keywords and include some of them. So just sort of like spice your resume with some of them, and this will help you a lot. Especially, you want to pay attention to anything listed in the sections labeled qualifications or requirements, right? Because a lot of HR managers and recruiters tend to look for, they tend to want to have a match. So if they have to choose between 2 or 3 candidates, they'll want to go with the candidates that has the highest level of keywords, keyword match. But again, it has to be truthful. Don't lie on your resume. Never lie on your resume. You want to put things that are true. It's just a matter of how you present yourself, all right? The third thing you want to think about when it comes to resume content is to include only relevant information and you want to show the most important information first, right? If you have, let's say 20 years experience, you have extensive work or educational experience, you still want to keep your resume as brief as possible. Now, while doing that, you want to also keep key information in the resume. So that's why you want to show the most important information first, right? And this will basically vary based on the job. So your job here is to read the job description, figure out the requirements and qualifications that are important to the recruiter, and tweak your resume to make sure that the most important matching information appears on top, right? And again, it has to also be relevant, right? So if you have, let's say you have, you've worked at 10 companies, for instance, in the past 30 years, you can actually just put prominence. You can explain more, elaborate on the last 5 or the last 3 companies, right? That are in the same field, the same industry as the company you are interviewing at. So the thing here is to be very, very, very strategic about the kind of info you're showing. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We're still having a conversation about resume writing and resume planning, and I'm just giving you a few things you need to know before sending your resume to a recruiter. If you like this kind of content, consider subscribing to our channel, turn on the notification bell so you are made aware of new shows, share, like, comment below, and just be nice to the overall Sweetie Kiwi community, and we will acknowledge you in a future show, right? Speaking of acknowledgement, we want to give a quick shout out to Nicole Burns in Madras, Oregon, Justice Hall in Beaverton, Oregon, and Nicholas Cunningham in Milwaukee. That's in the beautiful state of Oregon. Now, we talked in the first section about resume content, right? Now I want to talk to you about your resume design, how you design your resume. So, as I said earlier, you want to highlight, you want to highlight important achievements. In the last section, I was talking about important information. But here, I'm not talking about important education or important skills. No. You want to highlight just the achievements. So instead of listing your job duties under the experience category, for instance, you can just put your 3 or 4 or 5 most important achievements in each role you've held. This is a complete departure from what most people do. A lot of people, a lot of folks, a lot of candidates will just describe their tasks at a specific job. What I'm telling you to do here is just to list your key achievements. All right? Now, be strategic about subheadings and sections. You want to only include the subheadings and sections you need, right? Again, the thing here is that if you need a resume summary or resume objective, you can put that. If you want to combine sections, you can do that. The idea here is to give the recruiter the most important, the most compelling version of your professional history that could make him or her hire you or want to call you for an interview, right? So be strategic about the subheadings. I would say prioritize quality over quantity, right? And you can actually merge 1 or 2 or 3. You can merge 2 or 3 or 4 categories into one subheadings, right? So those are things you want to think about. Another elements to pay attention to is the margins. Choose proper margins for your resume, right? Typically, you want to use a 1-inch margin size on all sides of your resume with single spaces between the lines. Don't try to do double space. No, nobody wants that, all right? So if you have too much white space, consider making your lines spaced by 115 or 1.5. That's fine. You can also increase your margins if you find it difficult to fill your resume, right? So if you're trying to make sure that your resume fits on one page, you can consider increasing your margins, but make sure that the margins stay below 2 inches, right? Now, the recommendation based on research here is that you want to have a 1-page resume if you have 5 years experience or less, 2 pages if you have between 5 and 10 years of experience, and 3 pages if you have more than 10 years of experience. So the rule of thumb here is 1 page for every 5 years of experience until until you reach 10 or 10 plus years, right? Again, it depends on the field. In some fields, especially in the academic world, professors and college professors and university lecturers are used to having a long resume. Okay, but that's okay. So another thing that you want to think about when it comes to resume design is fonts. So use a professional font, right? Remember that employers have only a short time to review your resume. So one thing you want to make sure is that the resume is clear and easy to read. Don't try to, use weird fonts or trying to experiment. No, use a basic clean font. I'm talking Times New Roman, Arial, Tahoma, that kind of font, right? Don't dabble into anything complicated. The size should be between 10 and 12, right? Remember that selecting a clear, readable font will make your resume appear more professional, and that's what we want, right? First impression counts. First impression counts. One thing you should definitely avoid is thin or light fonts. Those fonts that basically are really, really thin. You don't want that. You really don't want that. For instance, Calibri Light is a font that I personally love, but I'm not going to use that for when writing a resume, right? Because it's too thin. Okay, so this is basically what I had to say about your resume design. We'll talk now about the language in your resume, and that will be in the next section. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We're still having a conversation today about resume writing and resume planning. And I want to quickly give a shout out to Paloma Ray in Wayne, Oklahoma, Gabby Gillespie in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, of course, and Marvin Horn in Edmond, Oklahoma. Now, let's talk about your language in your resume or on your resume. The first step here is you want to customize your resume to different jobs. Now, this is a question that you have to answer yourself, but experts agree that it's just better to customize your resume to different jobs. Again, that's up to you. You need to decide whether you need a unique resume for different jobs or different resumes for different jobs. Again, our suggestion is to customize to have a basic resume. So you have a basic resume that you can then customize to specific positions. Now, the work might be worth it. Remember, if you hired, that's income coming into your family. That's years of peace of mind. So it's worth it. It's worth spending 1 hour on customizing your resume. All right. Now, the thing here is that customizing the resume doesn't mean lying. Again, I want to stress that. It just means that you are highlighting the skills, the achievements. You're highlighting the education that will make you most likely to be called for an interview and potentially be hired. Right? So you have a basic, I would say, a basic catalog of knowledge, and your job here is to pick and choose which items in that catalog apply to the specific position you are applying for. Right? So you want to make sure that the language used in a particular resume is relevant to the job you are interested in getting. Now, besides having a customized resume, make sure you use the active form. Ditch the passive form, right? Use the active form. I did this. I led. I did this. I ran. I managed. I collaborated. Those, and this is part of what I call power words, right? Words such as accomplished, completed, earned, achieved, managed, led, oversaw, coordinated. Those are powerful words. Those are power words that show that you are doing something, and those are action words, right? So this is very important. This is a key element to always remember. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you can say something like, during my 3 years at XYZ company, I led several team-based projects and helped each colleague with various tasks related to each project. Right? So this is showing that you were in an action role. You were using the active role. You were using power words. The power words here were led, helped, right? So those are power words. So you want to really think about that. Another element that is very important when it comes to your language on your resume is the editing. So proofread, edit, and proofread again. Folks, this is very, very important. Before sending out your resume to any recruiter for that matter, you should undergo several rounds of proofreading. This is so important. Why? Because first impression counts. First impression counts. If you have a single spelling or grammar error in your resume, depending on your industry or depending on the role you're applying for or the level you're applying for, this could really be detrimental, right? Because it just shows some form of sloppiness on your part, and we don't want that, right? So you want to take, again, if you get the job you're applying for, that's several years of income, peace of mind, comfort, coziness. So it's worth spending 1 hour or 30 minutes reviewing your resume, or even hiring somebody to take a second look at it, right? So proofread, edit, and proofread again your resume before sending them out. All right? I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We are about to wrap up today's show. We were having a conversation around resume writing, and today's context, the context for today's conversation is very simple. Looking for work can often be exhausting and frustrating, especially if you're applying for jobs in a competitive or crowded sector. To increase your odds of success, you should tweak a few things in your resume, cover letter, LinkedIn profile, and professional networking approach, among others. Before sending your resume to a recruiter or HR manager, you want to know the state-of-the-art practices that successful candidates are using, not only in the private sector but also in the government and nonprofit fields. I've given you a few tips here, actually 10, they were lumped into 3 main categories. Here's a recap. Before I do it, I quickly give a shout out to Peyton Burr in Hooven, Ohio, Gabby Maddox in Dublin, Ohio, and Kenny Meyer in Bexley, Ohio. Thank you so much. So, 3 main categories: your resume content, your resume design, and your language. So, your resume content, review the resume examples in your field. Look for keywords in the job description and use them in your resume. Include only relevant information and show the most important information first. When it comes to your resume design, you want to highlight important achievements. Be strategic about subheadings and sections. Choose proper margins. Use a professional font and size, I will say. Regarding the language on your resume, customize your resume to different jobs. Use the active form. Proofread, edit, and proofread again. All right, this is really pretty much it. Here is today's call to action. I like to give a call to action at the end of every show to sort of nudge our viewers and listeners to action. And today's call to action is pretty simple. Consider a resume as a key element of your professional branding. This is important. So you want to hire a professional resume writer if needed. Why not? Another thing that's very important is to update your resume at least once a year. Remember, a resume is a living thing, is a living document. So you want to update it at least once a year. Keep a busy networking schedule, right? Even if you don't have a job, even if you are not on the job market, even if you have a job, you want to still keep a busy networking schedule. So you want to update your list of references and professional contacts every quarter. By networking, you're establishing you're establishing a database of professional contacts, and you need to update this every quarter. Engage in volunteering activities and mention those activities on your resume if suitable. All right, folks? Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Remember, stay marvelous.